Howse live. Whether the issue is law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security, Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast on this Friday night, September 19th, 2025. Joining me in studio tonight is State Senator Brent Taylor. He's going to join us tonight in studio. Now you say, why do we care about a state senator from Tennessee if we're not from Tennessee? Because he's going to talk to us about some stuff that's very interesting. That includes, he is an undertaker, a mortician, and he had, just not too long ago, dug up a Civil War Confederate General Forrest. Why did they have to dig him up? And where did they move him to? And what did they find when they opened the casket? You're going to hear about that, some Civil War history tonight. But you're also going to hear about what's going on in Memphis. Because guess what, folks? Guess what? What's happening in Memphis is being repeated, I think, in St. Louis, Kansas City, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Baltimore, Maryland. We can go on and on. Let's find out from this state senator how we can fight crime. And maybe Memphis, and with the National Guard coming in here, is going to be a model for other people. But yet, what about the crime going on in your city? Is some of it due to corruption also of politicians and wasted budgets, drained budgets? And where has the money gone? Why are we having such a hard time filling police officer slots? Some police departments have hundreds of slots open with no officers. Why? Let's address all of that. So yes, the jumping off point is Tennessee, Memphis, but all of this is applicable for all of us tonight, okay? And then I'm going to have on Dr. Basima Williams to talk about depression, grief. A lot of people, of course, since the assassination of Charlie Kirk have felt great grief. They're mourning. But we're not just mourning for Charlie Kirk. We're mourning for our country and what seems like such a divided country and so much evil and people celebrating the murder of this young man, a father and a husband. How do we as humans, as Americans, but also as Christians, handle the issue of grief, mourning? What about the spiritual aspect, but also the physiological aspect? I want to ask a Christian and an MD and a functional medicine doctor about helping us overcome grief, anxiety, dealing with the issue of mourning, and not slipping into depression. And then I'm going to be joined by her sister. Her sister, Tina Blanco, knew Charlie Kirk, worked with Charlie Kirk. Her organization, her company that sponsors us, worldviewtalk.com, sponsored Charlie. She knew Charlie well. She's going to Charlie's funeral on Sunday. We're going to visit with her as well. We got a lot to get to. Now, before we do that, why don't you tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, True Social. Tonight, I'm going to be showing some video footage that I'm told has never been shown before. It's of a shootout in Memphis. And I'm told this has never made the airwaves. We'll see if the state senator has ever seen this footage that we're going to show that we're told is going to be a first-time airing. So tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, True Social. I think it's going to be a very interesting program tonight. So come join us and tell, you're already here, but tell other people to join us. Now, Judge Joe Brown, I don't think he's going to make it. We've invited Judge Joe Brown. Something happened in his schedule. We don't really know what, but I don't think he's going to make it, but we'll try to get him rescheduled. But I think you're going to appreciate what the state senator, who's also very witty. He's very witty, kind of a like U.S. Senator Kennedy from Louisiana kind of guy. I think you're gonna appreciate what are some of his witty remarks. He's kind of known for that in our area. So I think you'll appreciate that. So tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, True Social, get your family and friends here to join us. And then, of course, as always, we'll put it up online later. Okay. Now, remember, we're brought to you by you. So before we go to the senator who's going to join us in studio here, we need you to go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors right now. Consider Worldview Talk. Get your satellite phone, get your solar generator, Get your bulletproof backpack. Get your EMF blanket that knocks down the EMF rays. Get your gold, your information on gold for your IRA, numismatic, or bullion. Worldview water. Get your water filter that filters out all these nasty chemicals. Many of them make you sick, cause cancer and other things. Check out Worldview vitamins. Melissa House GPA, that's your Gatatana that feeds you to the cellular level, down to your mitochondria. Don't forget about our Bella Grace, the elixir I take every day along with my Gatatana. Then there's your Numi. That's your glutathione to detox your cells. I'm hearing from more and more people that are getting on this they say it's helping them not only get well, because they take it and start swishing several times a day when they feel like they're getting sick and it reverses it, but people who are now feeling sharper. They feel sharper neurologically. Some of my older audience, I got some of you that are taking it. They're now reporting back to us, hey, now after being on this a couple of weeks, I do feel sharper. My mind feels clearer. Well, some studies have shown glutathione may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. So I swish with this. I take my glutathione, which is my Gatatana. I take my Numi. Hey, Dolly. I take my Numi, and I take my Bella Grace. All right? So, guys, please get involved in this. Now, what is that noise? Holy cow, they're doing something down the hall. I think there's actually, to be honest with you, I think there's a plumber here. Listen to that, Dolly. I think there's a plumber. Oh, they can't even hear that? There's a plumber here, I think, using a snake trying to unclog a drain. Did one of you boys clog up the toilet? We had to call in a plumber? You guys. What are you eating in there? I can't believe you guys can't hear that. They can't hear that. And alive, it upset Dolly. It's a great mic. It is definitely blocking out all the background noise. Wow. All right. So check it all out at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Of course, don't forget about our foundation. One of the greatest ways you can support us, folks, is through our foundation. Worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. All right. Now, remember, get your Vault membership. Get your membership to the Vault so you can live stream our national conference coming up. What is that? Is that 2 weeks from tonight, Logan? Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. 2 weeks from tonight. You can live stream it with a Vault membership. Worldviewtube.com/Vault. Worldviewtube.com/Vault. All right. Get on board. All right. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to get the state senator in the studio here in a chair. And this is going to be a very fascinating interview. And I'm also going to bring you what I'm told is footage that has never been aired before of a shootout in Memphis. Now, by the way, our national conference is going to be in Collierville, not Memphis. All right. But you got to see this. We'll see if the senator's ever seen it before. So Senator Brent Taylor, Dr. Basima, and then Tina. Great lineup tonight. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now. And we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault. Worldviewtube.com/vault. And for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Worldviewtube.com/vault. And help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview. Joining me now is Senator Brent Taylor. He is my state senator. He represents part of the town I live in, Collierville, or maybe all of the town of Collierville, but also other areas as well. Now, again, I know we're a national broadcast, and so I don't want you to turn out, folks. I don't want you to say, well, he's going to talk about Memphis and Tennessee, and I don't live there, and I don't really care. Well, you should. Because I believe what we're going to talk about tonight, just as we did with Judge Joe Brown last Friday night, is really showing you a template of how the crime gangs, international drug cartels, Sinaloa network, drug dealers, they operate. And I think we also have some crookedness going on in some of our governments. You think that might be possible, folks? And how maybe these groups kind of work together or cover for each other. And I think this same template that we see in Memphis, you could probably duplicate this in Chicago, in St. Louis, Kansas City, San Francisco, Atlanta, on down the line, right? So if we can understand the problem, then maybe we can start solving some of the problems. But like the art of war, you got to know your enemy. You got to know your enemy's tactics. The same thing goes with the crime that's just rotting away at what were once great communities. We've got to know what's the template they're using. What's the cover? What's the camouflage they're using? So I think when you listen to what we're talking about here, maybe it'll inspire you to understand what's happening in your community and to find some elected officials like Senator Brent Taylor here who are willing to take it on. So all of us are concerned about crime. It's growing everywhere. And so tonight, we might be talking about Memphis, but it's just an example of what's probably going on in your backyard or nearby. Senator, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for joining us in studio.
Thank you, Brent. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you with us. Yeah. We're also going to talk about some interesting things from a historical standpoint. And maybe we'll just start with that so folks can get to know a little bit about you. Because you're a mortician by training, right?
That's right. I'm
funeral director.
Funeral director. I'm an undertaker by profession. And as you know, there are only two things that are certain in life, death and taxes, and I got a little something to do with both. As a matter of fact, I'm opposed to both personally. I'm opposed to taxes, and personally, I'm opposed to death. I don't want to be a part of that until I have to.
Right, exactly. Well, you are in a line of work that you never ran out of customers, right?
Death rate, Brent, is 100%.
It is 100%, isn't it? So are you still in that business?
No, I sold my companies. I had a chain of funeral homes scattered in Tennessee and Mississippi. I sold them about 3 years ago. And I sold in January of 22. I had no idea what I was going to do. And then my predecessor in the Senate decided he was not going to run again. And so I had a bunch of people ask me to run for the Senate because I had previously served on the city council in Memphis and on our county commission. And so I had people ask me to run for the Senate. I did, and it worked out well because I never got seller's remorse for selling a funeral home because I got busy campaigning, and then I won and been busy serving the good people of Memphis. And so I'm sure they made changes at the funeral home that I would have liked to have been a part of, but they made them anyway.
Oh, you got a different calling.
That's right.
All right. So I want to go to some history, though, because of the fact that you are licensed undertaker, mortician, you were able to take part in something very interesting, and you're even writing a book on it. Tell our audience about that.
I am. General Nathan Bedford Forrest, the Civil War general, was from Memphis, and he died here in Memphis in 1877. He was buried at historic Elmwood Cemetery, which was the old historic cemetery all Memphians were buried in back in the day. And then around the turn of the century, some remaining Confederate veterans decided that they wanted to disinter him from Elmwood Cemetery and relocate him to a city park that had become known as Forest Park, named after General Forrest. And he remained there from 1903 until just a couple of years ago when a group of African Americans who had acquired the park wanted to have him disinterred and moved elsewhere. And ultimately, the law says that you have to have a licensed funeral director to do a disinterment and handling of remains. And I was the only funeral director that was acceptable to everybody involved, the Forrest family, the African-American group that owned the park, and the Sons of Confederate Veterans. So I undertook on about a 9-month project of disinterring General Forrest, his wife, sheltering their remains for about 3 months, and then ultimately reburying them in Columbia, Tennessee, at the Museum of Sons of Confederate Veterans. And so I've written a book about that whole experience, and I kind of go back all the way back in the mid-'90s when I was on the city council, and there were these pushes then to have him moved. Now I'll just share one of them with you. The first African-American mayor of Memphis was a gentleman by the name of Willie Harrington.
Oh yeah,
Mayor Harrington.
I remember him.
And Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson came to town. They were going to have a rally at Forest Park to remove. They wanted to try to, get him and his wife moved someplace else. And Mayor Harrington wouldn't go to the rally. And so Jesse Jackson went to the mayor and said, Mayor, Al Sharpton would really like for you to come to this rally. And Mayor Harrington told him, he said, I tell you what, I'm not going to have any part of moving any dead people. And Al Sharpton needs to go back to New York and tell Mayor Giuliani how to run New York because I run Memphis. And as long as Harrington was mayor, there was never any serious discussion about removing General Forrest. Ultimately, they did. I did the work, and I've written a book about that whole experience.
And when will that be out?
Well, hopefully sometime toward the end of the year, first of next year was when I'd like for it to come out. I will tell you, if you've never written a book, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, particularly for somebody that was not that good in school. If it wasn't for summer school, I would still be there. And so it was quite the undertaking for me to write a book.
So people should just be watching in 2026, Senator Taylor will have a book out. And what's it going to be called?
The name of the book is Digging Up Bones, My Journey Through the Many Burials of General Nathan
The
Bedford
mini
Forrest.
burials. Poor guy's been dug up and buried, what, 3 times?
4 times.
4
actually.
times.
Yeah. He was at Elmwood. Then they moved him to Forest Park. And then I temporarily buried him in one of my cemeteries because I had to shelter his remains for about 3 months. And I didn't want him in the funeral home where gawkers could come in. So I reburied him a 3rd time. And then we disinterred him from there to take him in for his 4th and final burial up at Columbia, Tennessee.
So what's in Columbia, Tennessee?
The Museum of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. They've got a museum up there, and that's where he and his wife are buried there.
Now, you obviously had to open the casket, right?
We did.
What'd you find?
He and his wife's caskets had long since deteriorated, and what was basically there were skeletal remains, and we removed those from the caskets they were in into permanent caskets. And we worked with the family and Sons of Confederate Veterans in new appropriate caskets. And we actually had the measurements from his tailor from back when he was still living. And we used that, and we had a new Confederate uniform made to his specifications.
Wow.
And we did a ceremonial dressing, and we do that a lot of times when for bodies that are too badly decomposed, we'll do a ceremonial dressing, which is basically laying the clothes out on whatever remains laid out like they would have worn them in life. And so we did that, both he and his wife.
Now, are you saying that his skeletal remains were seen by people?
Only me and my staff.
Okay.
And the only ones that saw his skeletal remains. And then there were artifacts we found, and the family, we worked with the family and cataloged those artifacts, and the family ultimately made the decision they wanted those artifacts reburied with them.
Are we talking about medals or what?
Yeah, it was buttons, shirt buttons, suspender buttons, boot heels. There were things like that. The uniform was just about all gone. You could find a few fragments of the uniform that had survived, but mainly it was buttons. And we looked for, he had been shot. And we looked for a bullet, but we were never able to find the bullet. Mainly just
That was how he died?
No, he did not. He was shot, but he didn't die from the bullet wound. He lived. He had diabetes, and ultimately died from that at a relatively young age. And he was a farmer down on President's Island now, which, as you know, President's Island now is an industrial park, a lot of heavy industrial area. But that's where he farmed after the war. And, he was in the railroad business, the insurance business, along with Jefferson Davis, who was the former president of
the
Confederate States. They were in the insurance business together, both in Memphis. And so Memphis, as you know, has a long, rich history.
Well, even here in Collierville, we have the Battle of Collierville right in our town square.
Right. And there's actually a monument there in town square that you kind of have to know where it is, but it's commemorating that battle.
It sure is. So what, when his remains, you told me off camera, I asked you about it. You didn't find a lot of him left, but you did find some.
Yeah, it was mainly skeletal remains. The only soft tissue that was left was the back of his head, which still had hair 16, 18 inches long that we were able to wash and comb and place back in the casket in the appropriate place. And so as I told people, Brent, I had a lot of people say, I can't believe you want to get involved in moving Nathan Bedford Forrest. It could be bad for business and all. And, I took the approach that if if you thought Nathan Bedford Forrest was an awful human being, someone who bought and sold other people and treated human beings as chattel and sold them on the auction block, if you think that person is despicable, and you think his ought to be dug up and drug the hell out of Memphis, I'm your guy. If you think, on the other hand, that he was a brilliant Civil War tactician whose war moves are still studied today in war colleges, and he should be treated with dignity and respect, I'm your guy. So I was the one guy that was able to please everybody in that.
Oh, man. There's somebody want to let Dolly in. She's scratching at the door to get in. It's our studio dog. So even on our town square here in Collierville, a couple years ago, we had folks that showed up that wanted the removal of any monuments to the Confederates. What do you make of the desire to just erase all of our Confederate history? Thankfully, we have the monument going back in Arlington National Cemetery that was removed. Now it's coming back in. That was to the Confederates. What do you make of them trying to erase all of this?
First of all, you should never erase history. And when that battle was starting up, I even reached out to some of the city council members and I said, look, I don't think we need to remove Nathan Bedford Forrest. I don't think we need to take the statues down. If you want to add additional statues that put Nathan Bedford Forrest and what he did in context so that people could go to that park
and make their own choice.
And they can see for themselves what Nathan Bedford Forrest did pre-Civil War. And so, but I will tell you this, none of us will live up to the scrutiny 250 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And the example I use, and I have no idea if this will happen or not, but imagine 150 years from now, they may have a way to take a cell and create the chicken and beef that we eat and be able to create that in a laboratory instead of actually having to raise animals and slaughter. And if they were able to do that in 150 years, they'd look back and say, how awful were those people to actually raise animals only to have them slaughtered to eat them? I mean, that's just awful. So none of us will live up to the scrutiny of 150 years from now. And they're trying to judge 19th century people based on 21st century values, and none of us will measure up in the long run.
Well, we saw that with Robert E. Lee. I was telling you off camera that we did a documentary on Robert E. Lee. We went to Arlington House there in Arlington National Cemetery, did a big documentary on him. And, you know, in many ways, he was a great also general and warrior, and his strategies. But yet also, he was a man of faith. His wife was a great person of faith. And he was a great family man. He was a great patriot. He loved his country, Virginia, as he referred to it, as they're all seen as little independent countries, right? Sovereign countries. That became the United States eventually, of course. And then
he considered himself a Virginian person.
That's exactly right.
Second.
That's exactly right. And of course, he had serious issues with Washington, D.C. and the federal government marching across Virginia to North Carolina and South Carolina and heading to do what they did there, right? But have been Virginia to South Carolina. But he didn't like the idea of crossing those boundaries and waging war over what for him was an issue of state rights. And people can make it about slavery. They can make it about state rights. I think in a lot of regards, slavery was on its way out. I think it would have been done away with eventually, thankfully. But I also think these guys were very concerned about, does a state have the right to leave the union? Is there a point in time where the federal government becomes so corrupt that they've breached their contract, which we agreed to, we entered into, we created the federal government. So what we create, can we not either abolish it or alter it or divorce from this agreement that's no longer being held? And they were having this debate. And I don't think that's been resolved yet to this day. I don't think it's been, I think Andrew Jackson, who I respect in a lot of ways, was like, I don't think, we're going to allow certain states to leave. It's one that still hasn't been resolved to this day. And I'm afraid if the country keeps going the way it's going, we're going to find ourselves right back where some states are saying this is not working and we've got too many abuses and we need a remedy.
That question has not been answered yet, even after the Civil War, because General Lee, Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederacy, they were never brought up and tried for treason, mainly because that was an open question that nobody knew where the courts were. Because in order to make Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee and others, traitors to the United States, you would first have to answer the question of whether or not you could actually leave. And I don't think they knew what the answer to that was going to be, so they never tried them. And so it remains, even after the bloody Civil War, we still don't know whether or not states can leave. And I tell people that serving in the state Senate has got to be, it's the best political position in the world because we're the center of the political universe. We create all the governments that are below us with county and city government, and we created the federal government. And all sovereignty rests with the states, except for what the states decided they wanted to either give to the governments below them or to the government above them. And the Constitution is there, and it delineates what powers, what authorities we are giving the federal government. And we still see that same debate today.
I think you just brought me a great segue, because isn't that really what we're talking about when we talk about the National Guard coming in? The state and the leaders of the state are saying, we need help. And initially people were saying, well, what if this was Kamala Harris wanting to send the National Guard into Memphis? Would you be saying, oh, that she's federalizing the police and that, this is tyranny? And I know we would have that debate. But if regardless of party, if the intentions were, we have international drug cartels, let's say the Sinaloa network here and in many other cities. And they're getting their precursors from China to make their fentanyl. We're in a drug war. They are trying to create chaos. The CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, they want to create chaos. They pop in propaganda to our country, drugs, they're cyber hacking on us. They're buying up our farmland. They're bringing in their Confucius Institutes where they're training their people to go into schools. And they bring their people here. They send their people here. They have to stay in touch with their CCP agents, have to stay in touch with their embassy. And they're teaching our kids on how great China is and why we should not be afraid of China. That's right. Teach our kids we don't need to be afraid of a communist regime that still follows many of the principles of Mao. I'm talking about the government, not many of the millions upon millions upon millions of Chinese that are subjected to communism that want to be free, right? I'm talking about this Chinese Communist Party. They are doing everything they can to take over this country with unrestricted warfare, whether it's bioweapons, all the other things we can get into. So what is the purpose of the National Guard if not to secure the nation, right? Whether it's the borders or interior. And if you've got international drug cartels working with our sworn enemies, be it the CCP or others working with Iran or running arms with drug cartels for Hezbollah, Iran's terror cells, what else is your National Guard for? I don't think the Memphis Police Department, I don't think the Shelby County Police, our county here, has the money to the degree. Maybe that's because of some corruption. They don't have the money they should, but they don't necessarily have the manpower and or training, some of them, to take on these gangs to this degree. Who else would you bring in? Your National Guard to secure the nation. So my position went from, I'm not as worried about federalizing of the police as I am, is this what the National Guard's here to do, which is to wage war against national drug cartels or even local gangs that are now becoming an alliance with them. That to me is a difference because they're trying to secure the nation. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that, and there's probably another element I want to address as well. But first, the National Guard coming in and helping attack this gang problem we have. We have over 100 gangs in Memphis, and the President Trump is sending a dozen federal agencies. The entire alphabet soup of agencies is descending on Memphis, of which the National Guard is a part. And I've been telling the critics of this effort to say, look, the National Guard is not here to do law enforcement per se. They're here to serve as a force multiplier, to do those duties that are currently being done by commissioned police officers, to get those commissioned police officers out on the streets fighting crime with the alphabet soup of agencies. And the National Guard can do support, administrative, and logistic roles, and not actually out there chasing some criminal through somebody's backyard.
So we may not actually see the National Guard on the streets per se.
I think you'll see them perhaps securing crime scenes. Certainly they'll be around the federal buildings and any buildings where the federal government's leasing property. I think they'll be there as a show of force to protect that. But I think their primary role will be support and logistics and administrative to serve as a force multiplier, if you will, in getting police officers out on the streets. You know, Governor Lee, Tennessee's governor, has sent an additional surge of state troopers down here, and they're working with the police department, and we'll be working with these alphabet soup agencies and the National Guard. But I want to go back to your other point about the National Guard. You know, he deployed them in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
He deployed them in Los Angeles to protect the ICE agents that were there. And initially, Mayor Bowser, she was opposed to it, and Gavin Newsom was about it from the very beginning. Matter of fact, the two of them, they screamed about like a purse chihuahua does with their skin caught in the zipper of the purse. And that's how much they were screaming about it. And but here's the thing, to take what they were saying, the Governor Newsom in particular, he kept saying, you're bringing in the National Guard over the objection of the elected governor. Well, there's a precedent for that, Brannon. If you remember the 1960s,
Mm-hmm.
the civil rights of African Americans were being violated routinely by state governments. They would not allow blacks to go to school,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't let them sit at the lunch counter,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't let them sit at anywhere on the bus they wanted to. And the civil rights of African Americans needed to be protected by the federal government. And what did President Eisenhower and President Kennedy, rather,
Mm-hmm.
they sent in the National Guard over the objection.
Like in Little Rock, right?
That's right, over the objection of Orville Faubus of Little Rock, over the objection of Ross Barnett of Mississippi, over the objection of George Wallace in Alabama, to protect the civil rights of African Americans. Fast forward to 2025. The rights of Memphians
Mm-hmm.
to enjoy their homes, the rights of Memphians to enjoy their property, the rights of Memphians to be able to shop in our stores and eat in our restaurants and attend games at our sports facilities, the rights of Memphians to be able to move about the city without the fear of crime are being violated. And local government is overwhelmed. They're not able to protect the rights of Memphians. So President Trump has done the same thing that President Kennedy and President Eisenhower did to protect the rights of African Americans. He's sending in the National Guard, among other agencies, to protect the rights of Memphians. And I think Mayor Young, who is now the city mayor of Memphis, I think he has taken the right approach. Look, he will make no bones about it. He says he does not want the National Guard here. But he said that the decision was made upstream from him. And as long as that decision has been made and they're coming, he wants to work with them to get a good outcome. And I think Memphis, we're the first city to get the National Guard treatment from President Trump outside of
L.A.
LA, well, the third outside L.A. and D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can serve as a template for these other cities, because I think eventually the governors of the blue states, when they see the success we have here in Memphis, having a Memphis miracle and bringing our crime down, they're going to want to emulate that in their big cities.
And Memphis has a lot to offer. And I like living here. I could live anywhere. I mean, I could sell and move wherever I want. Take the network with me. I like the culture here. I was born in Jackson, Mississippi. Moved around because my dad was with the government. Chose to come. My grandparents are from Haywood County. My great grandparents. I mean, I can take my kids out to the family cemetery, as I do, and show them all the way back to the Civil War. And I would spend time on my grandparents' farm out there in Haywood County. And I love this area. I like the culture. And the culture here is very different from the culture in Nashville. I like the culture here. I wouldn't want to live in Nashville. Nothing against people in Nashville, but I don't like the culture in Nashville. I like the culture here. It's a very distinct and unique culture. Would you agree?
I agree. Nashville's culture is almost identical to Atlanta, Dallas, and Charlotte.
Very metropolitan. It's kind of been diluted.
It's almost like a plastic city.
That's
All
exactly
the skyline
right.
looks the same. Memphis, on the other hand, it is like St. Louis and New Orleans. It's a gritty river town. There's a lot of culture here.
A lot of history.
A lot of history. And I know, it's interesting. We've got two distinct cultures. We have a white culture and the African American culture. And what people don't think, they think we have a race issue in Memphis. We don't. We really never have.
I tell my national radio audience and TV audience all the time, we don't have a race problem. What we have is a crime problem, which is largely black on black.
That's right.
And people say, are you afraid to go to Memphis? And a lot of times I say, no, because I'm not black. But if you were black and you went into the wrong area or you were running around the wrong people, you should be afraid. But by and large, no, I'm not afraid of Memphis because I don't go to Orange Mountain. I don't go to Fraser. I don't go to certain places. I know to stay out of those areas. But there are people who are basically trapped there. They can't afford to leave those areas. And they should have the right, as you say, the civil right to live in a safe community. Isn't that what the first primary function of government is? Security and protection.
And protect liberty. And I can prove that we don't have a race issue because going all the way back to Rodney King and George Floyd more recently, when other cities across the country were rioting, Memphis never did. Sure, we had some demonstrations downtown, but they never turned violent. We just typically...
Neither during 2020.
2020, we didn't in 2020, and locally when we had Tyree Nichols, who was allegedly murdered by the police officers that pulled him over, we didn't have rioting. And so we don't have, you said it perfectly, we don't have a race issue, we have a crime issue, and that's one that we need to solve, and that's what I think President Trump...
And a lot of my black friends want it solved as much as anyone else, right?
It is, and I will add another layer to this, and that is if we don't get a hold of our crime problem, you mentioned you could move anywhere and take your studio with you.
People will move.
That's right. If we don't get this solved, we're going to witness the hollowing out of Memphis's middle class. And most small business owners are middle class people. And what will be left in Memphis will be the extremely poor people who couldn't afford to leave, and then the extremely wealthy people who could afford private security to stay. The middle class will just up and leave.
And I want to address that right there because I've said on my radio show for several years, and we have a big, powerful new software program coming and people can search it. I have said to my radio and TV audience, as we track trends, because that's what we like to do is track trends, look at philosophies and ideas and see where those are going and say, we think, 5 years, 10 years from now, this is going to be the growing trend. One of the things I said is you're going to see more and more private security companies. And I told some of my friends who were on the Carnival Police Department many years ago, 10 plus years ago, guys, the future is going to be private security. And if you want to take your training as police officers and go into private security, which one of my friends left the Carnival Police Department after his time and retired, now he does that, and he does security for us as well. I said, you start a security company because churches, synagogues, and wealthy neighborhoods or middle-class neighborhoods, so what? You charge them an extra $200, $300 a year on their HOA to have you driving around their neighborhood all night long, keeping watch over them. They'll do that for $300 or $400 or whatever they got to do. You can't put a price on that for a family to sleep well at night and know everything's good, right? And yet, what do we see? Even the neighborhood I live in, I've been in my neighborhood for almost 21 years. I said, hey, there might be something at some point we raise our HOA and become a gated neighborhood. Now there's problems with that because then you got to take over the roads. But guess what someone said to me the other day? There's people in your neighborhood talking about making a gated community. I said, well, look, there you go. You're going to see more of that. And you're right. People that have the resources and the means, they'll have the security in their neighborhoods. And the other folks that won't, they'll be afraid and they'll leave.
Right. It'll be the hollowing out of Memphis's middle class. We're not there yet. And that's why I think it's critically important that President Trump send these troops down here. And I since I was elected to the Senate, I have made my mantra to make Memphis matter. And the way to make Memphis matter is to make Memphis safe. And I started out, having some people join my team. First, it was other senators, and then it became the governor. But when he sent additional state troopers down here, and to see what I started a couple of years ago culminate with President Trump joining the Make Memphis Matter movement by sending the National Guard and all these agencies down to Memphis to help make Memphis safe. It was kind of a pinch me moment for me during my Senate career.
I'm glad you've been working this hard. And I've been following you, by the way. I've been following you. The guys in the control room follow you really close. One of the young men in there, of course, his dad's the vice mayor here in town. So a lot of these guys have really been following you guys and telling me about you for some time. I hear about you from other people, but I've heard more about you from the young guys in the control room.
Well, I've got a good.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think 20-something-year-olds follow you?
I think it's because I've got an interesting social media presence, and I'm outspoken, and we've got an Indivisible Memphis group. They're a nationwide leftist organization, and they target me, and I play with them. I refer to them as all the weathered, purple-haired hippies. And so there's a lot of back and forth on my social media, and I think that's why a lot of the young people like engaging.
Well, that's good for you. Now, I want to show you a video. I am told that this has not been aired on any of the social media platform. I'm told it hasn't been put on any news station here in town. I won't get into the particulars of who's shooting at who, and I can't even keep up with the name of these people and pronounce some of them in these groups. But I don't really think all that matters. That just confuses a lot of people. I think what it shows is a serious problem of gangs fighting each other and turf warfare and who knows what else it's all about. But this is what we're talking about. This is what, after I interviewed Judge Joe Brown the other night, I started getting videos, and particularly one individual started sharing videos with me. He said, you should show this. He said, this has not been aired publicly. I guess that's true. I don't know. You can tell me if you've seen it. This took place in Memphis. I think we got a couple shots. There's one right there. Now you just see a guy there on the ground just got shot and killed. Now we'll let that loop a couple times. And that took place, I'm told, in Memphis. I think there's another angle. This is a different one here. Look at that. Look at that. Now, I don't know if that gentleman in the suit is a security guard or what. That's what I was told, I believe. But have you seen these? So you're a state senator. You're seeing these. So the guy that sent it to me said, "You've not." He said, "No one has shown these. You showed these. These are going to blow up." And unfortunately, that is not an uncommon occurrence, though, is it?
It is not.
And sadly, some of that now is spilling into areas. We traditionally said, if you stay out of the bad neighborhoods, you're fine. But unfortunately, we're starting to see this stuff pop up in front of the pyramid and other places where the tourists are, where we go with our families, that traditionally, that hasn't gone, those shootouts with each other in the street has not occurred in the areas where we and the tourists go. True or false?
That's true.
But it now is starting to occur.
That's true.
So pretty soon, if we're not careful, now, I don't want to scare everybody away from my national conference coming up because it will be in Collierville. So all my friends coming from Washington State, Oregon, Florida, Wisconsin, can you assure them that if they drive in and come to Collierville or fly to the airport, that you're pretty safe here in Collierville?
Let me say to your attendees that are coming to your conference, where's the camera? Right there. If you are concerned about crime in Memphis to attend Brannon's conference, I want you to know one thing. The cavalry is literally on the way. President Trump made sure of that, and by the time the conference occurs, crime will be under control, just like it was in Washington, D.C. in short order. And Washington, D.C. went about 3 weeks, maybe longer, without a single murder. And we're expecting the same thing here. So you'll be safe to attend Memphis. And we're known for two things, good barbecue and Elvis Presley.
Yeah, that's right. And I love Elvis Presley's music. I'm a little embarrassed because I've had this national conference now. This is our 22nd annual Worldview Weekend. Branson, Missouri for years. Then we moved to the Lake of the Ozarks. And I just didn't feel like packing everything up and taking all the film equipment and all the... I said, let's just do it in town. I'm exhausted. So we got our beautiful Herald Theater, here in town. And the town's been good to us to let us rent that. And we've got several hundred people attending. But I was just up in Milwaukee speaking. And we had 1,000 people, standing room only. And I'm like, wait a minute, how can we do 1,000 up there? Now, I know I have a lot of radio stations up there, but how can we do 1,000 people there, but we can only bring out a few hundred here? And some of the folks are telling me, well, I was scared to come to your town. And I understand, because I think some of it gets blown out of proportion. But unfortunately, what I'm seeing now, as I said, is some of this has been isolated into the dangerous parts of town everybody knows not to go to. But some of it is starting to spill into places where the tourists are going. This has got to stop, because we ought to be able to hold a national conference here without people around the country thinking bad about Memphis, right?
Oh, totally agree. Totally agree. And as you saw there, the shooting and the people.
Go ahead and show it again, guys, when he's talking.
The people getting killed there. One of the reasons that has continued to be the case is we have, as you know, a leftist district attorney here.
Tell me about that. George Soros?
He's a Soros-funded DA, and he is a restorative justice schemer. He and Decarcerate Memphis and Just City, which is an organization that is dedicated to ending incarceration, and they do everything they can to keep people from being put in jail. And it's almost like our DA here wants to save souls. And I have encouraged him. I'm glad you want to save souls, and I would ask you to resign and join the ministry and save souls and leave prosecution of criminals.
I think he'd probably preach a liberation theology if he did.
Well, that's fine. The city would be safer as a result.
That's true.
And I know that his mother and Jesus love him, but everybody else thinks he is doing a horrible job as DA. And
what have the crime done since he took place? Because he got in, how's crime gone? Straight up?
Well, it initially went up. There has been a downturn in our crime, but it's been primarily because of a couple of things. One, there is a national trend of crime going down. And I think we're riding that trend. The second thing is, in the last 5.5 months, the federal government, FBI, has been here on what they call Operation Viper, where they've had the FBI and the U.S. Marshal's Office here in Memphis operating. And in the last 4 or 5 months, they have actually done 500 arrests, gotten over 100 federal indictments, and they've gotten a lot of these gangbangers off the street. We have about 100 gangs operating here. And that's why the president is sending the National Guard troops and these other agencies to Memphis, because that first 500 arrests, that's the low-hanging fruit. And so it's going to take additional resources to capture some of that fruit that's a little harder to get, and that's why they're coming here. So,
but do we have to worry that this is a temporary thing where they're sent away for a year or two, and then next thing you know, they're right back here again?
Good question. And the way I've explained it is that if we could get crime down to a manageable level, because right now the police department they're simply overwhelmed. There's so many gangs here and so much criminal activity, they're overwhelmed. So if we could get the crime down to a manageable level so that the crime matches the level of police officers that we have here, then they can keep it down.
But how many police slots, Senator, do we have open right now?
We should have about 2,500 police officers. Instead, we're down to about 1,700. So we're 600-700 police officers down. But that's 700. But that is a lot. But that is no different than any other city across the country. They're all suffering from manpower shortages.
And why? And I'll tell you why, I think. And you tell me if you agree. I think it's because we don't pay the police what we should. We don't have them treated with respect. Many of them feel demoralized. So it's like, why am I going to go out here and put my life at risk and only to have the same thug get released again? So we're not paying them well. You know, we have so much waste. Now, I haven't seen the books, but I listened to Judge Joe Brown, a few of these other people. They're saying, and I got some people this week after that interview with Judge Joe Brown, which I was not expecting that to get the traction that it got. I mean, within about 5...
Joe Brown knows how to get traction.
Well, he does know how to get traction. In about 5 days, that thing got, just on YouTube, like 75,000 views. But the majority of them were from right here in the area. I mean, I walked into a big box store, and you can testify, I keep a pretty low profile in town, don't I?
You do?
I do not go around creating noise in town, do I?
You do not.
I mean, and I would really hesitate to even bring
the kind of neighbor anybody would want.
Well, that's true. I'm very low profile.
If everybody was like you, we need fences.
That's true. I'm very low profile. And there are people who don't even know I live here. I mean, there are people I run into who say, I thought you moved. I didn't think you even lived here anymore because how low profile I am. And I do that on purpose, okay? For a lot of reasons, but I do it on purpose. But I'm not like a celebrity in town because I'm very low profile. I walked into a big box store this morning, a big one, hardware store. You know the chain, and the lady there that watches everybody scan their stuff. You know, we all do our own checkout now. I walked in and she looked at me and I smiled. I recognized her. I've talked to her, checking stuff out. She looked at me. I smiled. She looked back and she said, "I just got done watching you on YouTube with Judge Joe Brown." I said, "Oh, so you know who I am, what I do now, do you?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, and I support you." Well, I don't think she was following me, had a clue who I was when we were just friends and a customer. But the point is that thing got so penetrated into the Memphis area. And I think a reason why is because there are a lot of people that want this problem fixed. But what I did get was information from folks saying, we have departments inside the city government here that are missing millions of dollars. So we have millions of dollars we could be using to pay police a nice salary, hire retired military, special forces guys, God and country people. And we know the military signs up a lot of folks from the South, right? So we have a lot of our own right here that we could hire, pay them a decent salary, respect them, honor them, fight crime, and give them a salary that would attract the best candidates. But we're missing millions. I'm told by, again, not just one person. I'm getting flooded with people saying, do you know about this agency and that agency and this agency inside the Department of Memphis in the Memphis government that's missing millions here and millions here and millions here, gone? How are we going to stop that so we can pay the best salaries to get these 700 police officers back on the street?
Well, it is a challenge, and of course, the example that's gotten the most notoriety here locally is with our transit authority. They've had $60 million. They don't know where the hell the money went, and so that's
$60 million.
$60 million
That they cannot account for.
They can't account for it, and the mayor has.
But isn't that a criminal issue?
Well, it could be. I mean, they are looking.
Is the district attorney looking into that?
Well. He would give them if he caught them, he would give them a hug, a hot cup of cocoa, and a church bulletin, and ask them to go to Sunday school Sunday for repentance. But I tell you another issue. One reason we can't hire police officers. Number one, you're right. We don't pay them enough. But here locally, talking about local government, our county government with our sheriff's department, they have actually defunded the sheriff's department to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars. Every year, the sheriff has these unfilled positions we just talked about. Sheriff's departments and police departments can't hire anybody. So he's got these unfilled positions that are fully funded in the budget, but he can't fill them. So he has the staff he does have to work overtime, and he uses that money to pay overtime. Well, the county mayor went in and took all that money, tens of millions of dollars over 3 years, and spent it who knows where. And it's amazing how far we've come from September 11th, 2001, when the Twin Towers fell.
Right.
And when the Twin Towers fell, there were 2 new Twin Towers that were erected around the country, and that is police officers and firefighters, because they ran into danger when everybody else was running out. And back then, you could hear young people saying, I want to be a policeman. I want to be a fireman. Fast forward, and I think 2020 and the Black Lives Matter movement had more to do with this than anybody, where we took police officers and we villainized them and allowed people to walk all over the streets chanting, what was it, pigs in a blanket, frying like bacon.
That's
or whatever.
exactly right.
And who the hell would want to be a police officer when the community doesn't even appreciate it?
Or when police officers do their job. We had a young lady who is a police officer from Alabama on my broadcast. Can you help me with her name, Logan? Darby. And her husband was also, Keelan Darby. Her husband was also a police officer. This is in Alabama. Ben Darby. And I have not interviewed him because he can't talk yet, but I interviewed her several times. He shows up on a scene in Alabama where 2 officers are, if I remember the story correctly, are already in the living room with a man who's threatening to kill himself. He shows up as the 3rd officer. The man's got a gun. He's got it to his head. And he shows up, and I don't know if he outranked the other people or what, but he had training different theirs or what, I don't know. But at some point, he took some involvement, even though he came in late, to trying to rectify the situation. And at one point, he warned this guy over and over, do not turn that gun toward me or these officers, or we will have to kill you. We don't want to do that. We can work this out. Let's talk it out. But do not turn that gun our direction. And in the course of trying to talk this man down, he turned that gun toward them, and he was required, based on his training, to take that man's life. Now, that was his training. And that's still, I'm told by his wife, who came on our broadcast several times, was still the training. But there was some kind of political battle between the police and the prosecutor, and they went to the wall and they threw him in jail. And we were advocating for him. And thankfully, due to a lot of pressure, he got a new deal. He's out, and he's got like another year or so he has to be quiet. And maybe after that, he'll be able to talk to us. But he can't do that. And here's the deal. Who would want to be a police officer if you follow your training, you do what you're trained to do, it's still the training being taught, and yet you go to prison? Why would you want to be a police officer? Yeah.
And you're being judged by many times a leftist DA like we have here. And he's judging you on a split-second decision. And that's unfortunate. And the police officers ought to be given the benefit of the doubt when having to make those kinds of.
And the body camera today should be helping them, I would think.
I would think so too, because I mean, everything is recorded now. But look, when you've got our DA here, he's got a justice review unit that is charged with responsibility of two things. One, and he says this, one is to prosecute police officers. And then the second one is to review old cases, past convictions, to see if they can punch holes in those convictions and get people out. And he's actually done that in one particular case of a guy who was on death row. Brannon, he was on death row for killing two people. He had 2 death sentences. And they got him transferred from death row to life in prison, eligible for parole. And now the guy is up for parole after having been on death row and killing 2 people back in 1983. And that's what this leftist DA that we have here in Memphis is doing. Look, and it's not just him, it's Larry Krasner. It's all these DAs, Kim Foxx, it's all these DAs all across the country have been funded by George Soros.
Yeah, and George Soros, of course, we know where his worldview is, right? This is a socialist, I believe a socialist, communist worldview. And I don't know if these people are just, some of them, and I'm talking about George Soros, I don't know if some of these Soros DAs are just, if they themselves are change agents looking to bring down the country, or if they are just lacking in discernment and the evilness of the human heart. You know, the prophet Jeremiah says, the heart is desperately wicked above all else. Who can know it, right? I don't know if these people think that, well, we just create the right environment, we won't have crime. We create the right environment, people won't steal. Yet we know some of the poorest people have been very moral, upright, great citizens. During the Great Depression, we didn't have crime running rampant because there was a moral code. But yet we also know people that are extremely wealthy, many of them, Lenin, Castro in Cuba. I mean, I could go down the line of very, very wealthy people, had all the money they get their hands on, but they were brutal murderers. And so man's heart isn't changed by his financial condition. It's changed, as I believe, through the power of the gospel. But these guys seem to think, well, we just create the right environment, this will all end. So it's either they don't understand original sin, the fall, the heart of man, or they really are out to destroy the country. Now, I believe some of them are out to destroy the country. The whole 1983, my friend George Griffin interviewed a former KGB agent whose expertise was brainwashing, and Yuri Bezmenov. And he said, look, our goal this was when the Soviet Union was up and running. He says on tape, our goal, demoralize, destabilize, chaos, the new norm. Demoralize, destabilize, chaos, the new norm. Of course, the new norm is socialism, right? But in this process, I think we're in the chaos. We're in the chaos stage that they're deliberately creating to try to destroy this country to a point, at some point, where I'm afraid some of the solutions will be, quote, solutions, will be embraced even by patriots, conservatives, constitutionalists, MAGA people will embrace them. For instance, crime. Well, you want to end crime? Let's create 15-minute cities. Then you'll know everybody coming into town. You got to be scanned. You want to do it at the border? Everybody needs their biometrics read, you know? And all of a sudden, we're being tracked and digitally tracked. And you think, well, that's probably a great way to use technology to cut down on crime, which I'm for that part of it. But next thing you know, who's got that, right? And I played a clip recently of RFK Jr. saying the system that's being put into place now will be used by somebody in the future to control every aspect of us, like they do in China. Whereas you jaywalk, the money, I'm not joking, comes out of your account before you get to the other side of the street. Now you can't ride on the train. You can't get on a plane. You're not allowed to leave the country. And they open a file on you called a Dangan. When you enter school, and it follows you your whole life, and your hiring, your firing, your job promotions, your ability to travel is all based on that.
Thank God we don't have that here, because I was not good in school. We talked about that earlier. And my first job when I moved to Memphis was at a funeral home here, and I got fired more times than Davy Crockett's shotgun. And so I certainly wouldn't want that. As a matter of fact, I have that distrust of government. When I go to the airport, I won't even go through the scanner thing. I don't go through it. I do a pat down, which is uncomfortable. But they kept saying all along, we don't keep those scans. We don't keep those scans. Well, it came out a few years ago. They actually did keep those scans. And so I just don't trust the government.
So I guess what I'm saying is, do you think the crime is being used to get us to the new norm? demoralize, destabilize, chaos, and now the new norm, where we'll cry out for liberty, for safety, right, protection and safety, and all of a sudden we're willing to surrender some of our civil liberties to try to get back some of our civil liberties.
Neither.
Exactly. Is that a concern?
It is a concern, and you see it now among a lot of people over the gun debate. People say, well, we need to get all these guns off the streets and all of that. Matter of fact, I was in a virtual meeting the other day where the issue of gun restrictions came up. And I told them, I said, and they were complaining about permitless carry because we have permitless carry in Tennessee. And they were complaining about that. And I said, well, let me ask you that. If we moved to where you had to have a permit to have a gun in Memphis, if you watched that video we just saw.
Yeah, play it again, guys.
Yeah. Do you think those guys wouldn't have had those guns because they had to have a permit?
Yeah, criminals aren't going to follow the law.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. So if you require permits, that only applies to law-abiding citizens, not to the criminal. By definition, criminals don't follow laws. And we've had permitless carry since Cain slew Abel with a stone. And the best antidote to guns on the street, a bad guy with a gun, is a good guy.
That's 100% right. 100% right. We're showing that again. And let me ask you this as we get ready to wrap. If you ran your funeral homes, you had standards you had to apply by to keep your doors open, right?
That's correct.
And what if you didn't apply by them? What if you didn't practice those standards? What would happen?
Well, either the city government or my regulatory board would come down and they would shut my doors.
They shut your doors. So when we look at this shooting going on, one of them was I think in front of a club or a restaurant, not that one, but the other one, I think was in front of a restaurant or a club. I'm hearing that some of these places, that's what they are. They're restaurants, they're clubs. At what point do we start as citizens demanding that if that's what's going on there, we need to pull their license? They need to be shut. These clubs, these restaurants, whatever these businesses are that are setting this environment and this kind of garbage is going on, and making that available without reporting it and calling the police and saying, look, we got to get this out of here. We need help cleaning our business. I'm not talking about some innocent guy who runs a restaurant and these folks come in and start creating crime. But if this is a place that is a front for crime and their businesses, why don't we just shut them down, pull their license and shut them down?
And there are statutes that allow for that to happen. And I, as critical as I am of our locally elected DA, he has actually done that in a couple of cases where a business was criminally negligent, and they would go in under the order of the district attorney and close it down. They would then go to court, and the judge would tell them what they would have to do in order to open their doors back up. And it's provide additional security. It's about doing video surveillance, recordings, that kind of thing. But so many of these businesses know that the illegal activity is happening out in the parking lot, or even worse, happening inside the building, and they actually encourage it because they're either getting a cut of what's going on inside, or they're being paid to allow that activity to occur. So I certainly think we need to do that, but we need to make sure, and I think you would agree with this, we need to make sure that in doing that we protect the rightful law-abiding business owners 100%. Who happen to have a crime that occurs outside their business. So,
all right, I'm not going to keep you much longer, but let me ask you about Elon Musk. Some of the folks that are screaming and hollering about, the National Guard, are they not some of the same people screaming and hollering about Elon being here with his turbine generators and whatnot, and don't want that here? Now, my hesitation on any of that is I just don't want to stress out the power grid. It's already, kind of weak, and we get too much going on. And I don't know if you've noticed, but our power here has gone out more times in the last year or so than I ever remember in almost 21 years, right? And I got a lot of expensive equipment here. And if this keeps going up and down, it's going to destroy some of this equipment.
Right.
And we've had to take precautions with generators and battery systems so it doesn't do this. But hopefully they'll stable this thing out. Now I hear Google's going to bring a $10 billion data system right over the border in Arkansas and West Memphis. Can these communities handle these data centers and how powerful they are? And what do you make of the people that are talking trash about Elon's data center? Are these people really interested in the environment, or are they just using this as political fodder?
Well, I think the term you're looking for is artists. That is what they really are. And they have the credibility of my mother's Facebook page. And the policies that they try to advance are as useless as a nutrition chart on a bag of ice.
Where do you come up with this?
So I can't speak to the other data centers, but I can speak to XAI because I have been in many, many meetings with them. And I can tell you that when Elon Musk put XAI here, there was concern about the water usage to cool the computers. He is actually, instead of using our aquifer, which is here in Memphis and very prized among Memphians, he is not using a drop of water out of the aquifer. He is actually, at his own expense, building an $80 million wastewater treatment facility that will use gray water from the effluent from the sewers, clean it up, cools the computers, and then sends the water back to the city to ultimately be released in the Mississippi River. So that solved the water problem. Then there was the issue of electricity. And he is actually building 2 substations at his own expense down near the XAI facility. And he has purchased a decommissioned Duke Energy plant across the state line in Mississippi that he's going to get back online to produce electricity for his XAI facility and then sell excess energy back into the grid. And
that'll be a business in itself.
That's right. And the other thing is he has got dozens and dozens of these Tesla battery packs down there that protect the huge fluctuation in energy usage from the data center. Because if you just attach that directly to the grid, like you said, it would damage your equipment, it'll damage the grid. So the batteries actually absorb that huge fluctuation, but then they're downloading at a steady pace to recharge the battery. And lastly, he has agreed that in times of peak energy use that he would reduce his energy consumption, which we typically require that of large industrial customers to agree to reduce their usage during peak times. He has not only agreed to that, he's agreed to come off the grid in peak energy times at 100%.
Oh, wow.
Because he can use those Tesla battery packs and stay off the grid completely for almost a day. Wow. And then he's got the turbines, which has caused a lot of, the gas turbines, which has caused a lot of concern here locally, and a lot of the people who got big enough mouths for 3 sets of teeth that they're complaining about. He's got the gas turbines as a backup, and in the event he has to stay off the grid longer than his battery's capacity will allow him to do it.
Have you met with him?
Not with Elon Musk. I've met with a gentleman that runs the XAI facility. I've toured it with the Mississippi governor. I've been on a tour and a debriefing with Senator Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee's United States Senator. And I've been there several times and had several meetings.
Pretty impressive.
It is unbelievable.
Can you believe how fast he put it up?
Unbelievable. I mean, the substation I was telling you about. Our local utility company, as you know, is Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. It's our local utility company. They said they would build a substation, and it would take them about 5 years to get it online. XAI said, no, we need it online in 5 months. And they said, we can't do it. He said, well, we'll build it. If you'll let us build it, we'll build it, and we'll just gift it to you. So they built that in a matter of months. I'm sorry?
How much does that save the city? Or MLGW?
Millions upon millions of dollars.
And why isn't this a perfect example? The solutions are not found in government, but private entrepreneurs and corporations.
Elon Musk, his XAI facility, is the largest private investment in Tennessee history. We thought Blue Oval City, which is up near your homeland in Haywood County in West Tennessee, that was $5.5 billion. It was the largest private investment in Tennessee history at the time. Cost the state $1 billion to get Ford to come in incentives. XAI comes in. There, last I heard, and I'm sure it's more now, they were up about $13 or $14 billion in private investment of Elon Musk and his investors' money, not a dime in government incentives. That's the way we ought to be doing industry in this country.
What's going to happen with Blue Oval? Are we going to? Is it going to happen there? What about the talk of thousands of folks from South Korea coming in here and working and taking jobs? Is that real?
It has been a slower rollout than they anticipated. I think because the demand for electric vehicles is down. Look, I got a 2-year trade school education. I'm an undertaker by profession. I have a PhD. I'm a professional hearse driver. And I'm telling you, I could have foreseen that. There's nobody interested in electric vehicles. Sure not. I think that they will
Professional hearse driver, PhD. Remember that, boy.
That's right. I think they will ultimately produce something there, whether it's probably will be a hybrid that'll be produced there. But Ford has given every indication that they do plan to open that facility up and manufacture vehicles.
Do we have to worry about South Koreans coming in here taking Tennessean jobs?
We hope not.
You've heard that, right?
I have heard that, and that's why I'm a big proponent of career technical education, CTEs, because I think not every student is college material, and we ought to be training people for the jobs that we need. And I think community college and career colleges and trade schools are the best kept secret. Because you can go get a certification in something and get out and go to work making a lot of money with no college debt. And let me just say this last thing. The reason I think vocational education is so important is because I believe that the vocational student that comes out and gets a job is far more entrepreneurial than their college counterpart. You take somebody that comes out of a career school and they become an electrician. They go to work for an electrician. They go, hell, I can do this myself. So they buy them a truck.
That's right.
One truck turns to 2, 2 turns to 4, 4 turns to 8. Next thing you know, they have a whole fleet of trucks employing 150, 200 people in an electric company. I think they are far more entrepreneurial than their college counterparts who wind up, they have a nice degree, a lot of debt, and sitting in a cubicle in the bowels of some business somewhere.
Well, there's a lot of them that come and out of school, they can't find a job, or if they do, the salary is so low. It's like you went to school, paid all that money and time to get a job making that little money. And yet I got guys in my control room who I took literally right out of high school, trained them, and they're making better money than some of their friends who went to college and got a degree. They got tons of debt and making poor money. They have zero debt, making better money because we did the apprenticeship concept and trained them and turned them into amazing technicians, to the point that some of them I have to be worried that my competitors have tried hiring them away.
I was going to say, you gave them a marketable skill.
I did.
And it will, ultimately, they'll be able to demand higher wages.
Absolutely.
Because they have a marketable skill. Just because somebody has a degree in North African lesbian poetry studies does not mean you're going to be able to make a living. And I would much rather take one of your technicians and train them for the job I need and pay them accordingly than for them to have that Northern African lesbian poetry study degree.
Guys, can we take all of his sayings and string them together and shove them all over social media? Okay. Yeah, you must be friends with Tim Burchett, they're saying in the control room.
No, but I've heard people say that Tim and I have similar...
or Senator Kennedy down in Louisiana.
Yeah, I've heard that we all have similar personalities.
Well, I'm going to give my boys a marching order in there. Take all of these funny, what are we going to call them? Taylorisms?
Yeah.
Take all these Taylorisms, string them together, and let's shove them all over social media. All right, final question. Are you going to run for Congress, U.S. House of Representatives?
No, I enjoy the state Senate, and I'll tell you why I enjoy the state Senate so much. Is I could go to Congress, and for the first decade, I'm not going to pass any bills of my own. I'm going to be signing on to leadership bills. And in my spare time, I'll be in the bowels of the NRCC raising money for the conference. And whereas in the state Senate, literally, Brandon, I can have an idea, get the attorneys that work for the General Assembly to draft it in bill form, go get 16 other senators to agree with me, 50 House members to agree, send it to the governor, it can become law. In my 3 years in the state Senate, I guarantee you I have passed more bills in my first 3 years than probably all of the congressmen have in the last 3 years combined. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think I can have a bigger impact on the lives of Memphians sitting in the state Senate than I could in Congress, because it is so dysfunctional. They'll pass maybe 20 bills a year. We pass 20 bills a day when we're in session in Nashville. So I just think I'm where the Lord wants me.
And the solutions are local.
The solutions are local.
They are. Washington is not solving a lot of our problems here in our town, are they?
Washington is the problem.
Exactly. Ronald Reagan said that, didn't he?
He did.
Government's not the solution. It is the problem.
Right. The worst thing you can hear somebody say is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Exactly right. Well, we've enjoyed having you in studio. Thank you for
so
making
much.
time for us.
Yeah.
Hope you'll come back.
Absolutely. Invite me back.
Let me ask you real quick, not to get too far off, but these dear folks are also your constituents. You notice right over your shoulder, I have an Israeli flag. I don't know if you noticed that or not.
I did not when I came in, but I'll look when I leave. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's not there because I agree with everything the government of Israel does. I put that there because I have written 17, 18 books, documentaries. A lot of it's on the Holocaust. I've written a lot on the Holocaust. And people can deny it all they want, but we got the black and white footage, and I'm friends with a lot of folks who lost family members in the Holocaust. I even interviewed some folks, had some folks speak for me that survived the Holocaust. That flag's there because I am concerned about my Jewish friends. And I have a lot of Jewish friends in Memphis too, and around the country, and in Israel. I don't know if you know this, but I have a reporter on the ground in Israel.
I did not know.
Yeah, we pay him, and we have a reporter on the ground in Israel. And he's on with us many hours a week. On October 7th, I text my reporter in Israel. I said, I have an app on my phone. Every time a rocket goes off, a siren goes off on my phone. And on the night of October 7th, I got off the air, and my phone starts going off. One rocket after another, one siren after another. And I'd had this thing on my phone maybe 3 months. And I thought, well, in the 3 months, I've never heard this siren go off this many times. This is going on and on and on and on and on. I text my reporter, and I said, are you okay? He texts back, and he said, my cell coverage isn't real good. I'm in a bunker. He said, but this is just Israel. Well, I text him back, far be it from me to tell you, I mean, you live there, you're there, been living there for, he was, I think he's from, where's he from, guys? New Zealand, Australia, they always sound the same to me. But I think he's from Australia. And but he's been in Israel for 30-something years. So I said, far be it from me to tell you what's going on in your country, but this is not normal in the 3 months I've had this app. But if you've had it for 3 years or 30 years, this is normal, okay. About an hour later, he texted me back. He said, we're at war. The next day, I came to this desk, and I spent 8 hours on the air with my reporter live on the ground in Israel and several of my other reporters around the country. And we reported on that. And we showed, Senator, the video footage coming over, and we were seeing it for the first time because I can sit here and I can produce, and I would largely produce my own show in real time. So a guest could be talking. I can push a button over here and just go to that guest, and that guest is only on the screen. Well, I sit here and pull up stuff, and I was pulling up footage coming in raw. And then I would come back to the camera and say, I'm going to play this. This is not scrambled. It is not fuzzy. It's uncensored because we need to see the truth. Because people are going to be denying this in a matter of days. And they're going to be blaming Israel for this, what's going on, which turned out, as you know, to be the rape and murder of 1,200 people, including cutting off the feet of babies, putting babies in ovens, gang rape, and all this other stuff. And I said, I'm not showing it censored. I'm showing it because we need a wake-up call. And we did that for 8 hours that day. And so that flag is there. I moved that flag in there because I'm concerned about my Jewish friends. I received a phone call not too long ago from a lady whose husband's a rabbi here in town. And on the night of October 7th, my wife and I took a young gal to dinner because she had a sukkah in her backyard to honor one of the festivals. And this is a gal in her 20s. And she had here in Memphis, she had a sukkah in her backyard, and a lot of young Jewish folks in their 20s were in that backyard observing this Jewish festival, and all their phones started going off. And they had to get up, go home, start packing their bags, and within 48 hours, every one of them was right here in Memphis, in a backyard, observing a Jewish festival. Within 48 hours, most of them were in uniform back in Israel. They left their businesses here, and they went. And she didn't have to go because she has a child. And so my wife and I took her to dinner that night. We sat across the table from her having dinner in Memphis at a restaurant we like. And tears, the whole 2-3 hours we were there, she could hardly keep the tears streaming down her face. She had a friend that was there at that festival that was abducted. And I moved that flag in there because I've been studying the Jewish people and the Jewish state and the folks and what's been going on to them. But I'm very concerned, and I've gotten to know some of the more and more of the Jewish community in Memphis. And a rabbi's wife called me. And I want you to just speak to that as our last topic, because these are your constituents too. How concerned are you about the rise of anti-Semitism?
I'm concerned, and I, like you, I watched in horror of October 7th, and like you said, what they did to babies and what they did to those teenagers and young people at a concert with that surprise attack. And, you know, and all the money that Israel and the United States sent into Gaza to help for humanitarian purpose, make sure that people had hospitals to go to and food to eat, and all that money was stolen by Hamas and used it to build tunnels that they ultimately took the money that Israel was giving them only to turn around and attack them with it. And Israel has a right to defend itself. And that's what they're doing. And look, I get it. A lot of people are critical now of Israel, but Netanyahu said in the beginning, he said, we are going to exterminate Hamas to ensure that they never do this again. And he is in the process of doing that. And so that it's a very real threat. And then I have been surprised at the people on college campuses around the country with just open anti-Semitic comments and intimidating Jewish people to the point that they don't even feel comfortable going to class. And these college administrators doing nothing to protect the rights of the Jewish folks against the intimidation of Palestinian supporters. And we even saw it locally. We saw, if you may remember, we've got the Hernando de Soto Bridge that goes across the Mississippi River. And after October 7th, a bunch of Palestinian supporters went and commandeered that bridge and blocked it. And they were chanting from the river to the sea.
That's right.
And I immediately was on the phone with PHP trying to get them there. And I wish I could have gotten there earlier because the demonstration broke up and they got off the bridge. But while they were chanting from the river to the sea, the police should have been taking them from the river to the CJC. And so as a result of that, I actually passed a bill in the legislature that now criminalizes the commandeering of roadways and bridges for demonstrations. And
you can have people die who need to get to a hospital and they can't get across that bridge.
Exactly. I mean, that is exactly. They blocked that bridge for a couple of hours, and there were people who, you know, the hospitals for the Mid-South area are in Memphis, and there were people over in Arkansas needing to get over. So President Trump is correct in having Secretary Rubio look to revoke the student visas of anybody who engages in anti-Semitic behavior and talk against the Jewish people. Because they are guests in our country. And look, if you're an American citizen and you want to have your freedom of speech to support Palestine, in our country, you got the right to do that. You can't intimidate people. You can't commit crimes against
terroristic
people.
threats.
But you have the right to say what you want to say. But that's the great thing about free speech, because you get to know who the And so we just need to take note of that.
That's right.
So look, I think Israel has a right to defend itself, and we have a lot of the Jewish population in Memphis lives in my district.
I bet they do.
And I have been to a couple of their memorial ceremonies commemorating October the 7th, and hopefully we'll quickly get to a day where that war will end, and hopefully the Palestinians will choose leadership that will have their best interest at heart and allow the Palestinian people there in Gaza live a productive life. And Israel gave them everything. They allowed them to come into Israel and work.
Be in the Knesset, on the Supreme Court.
They've given them every reason to live it peaceful. And for whatever reason, the government that the Palestinian people choose remains hostile to Israel. And they keep saying that, well, that was Palestine before Israel took it over. Well, if you go all the way back, it was Israel's. And God gave it to the ancient Israelites. It's their land.
Historically and biblically. And of course, you and I know the whole Philistine, or as they call it today, Palestine, but really Philistine or Philistine was given by the Roman emperor. And it was done to pick that name, which was the arch enemy of the Jewish people. And yet we know they're what we call the Palestinians today. They have no connection at all to the Philistines or Philistine. It's made up thanks to people like Yasser Arafat and the rest of those guys. And of course, their River to the Sea chant, that means the elimination of the Jews. You go read their charter. Go read the Hamas charter. It is the elimination of the Jewish people. I mean, boom. So my flag back there is not because I agree with everything the Israeli government does. Far be it.
I mean, I don't agree with our government.
Exactly. That was going to be my next line. But I do stand with the Jewish people, and I am very concerned about the rise of global anti-Semitism. And particularly, I do know that they see many of us in America as the great Satan, and then Israel next. And if we don't understand who our enemies are, Hezbollah, Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, and these are the things I've written about and spoken about in documentaries on for decades now. I mean, they are here. They are here, and I'm very concerned about our own October 7th style event. I'm very concerned about our own infrastructure. I'm very concerned about our infrastructure that, of course, for Memphis supports our bridges and our distribution and our FedEx and UPS and Amazon. I mean, our economy is so fragile and vulnerable in so many ways when it comes to our infrastructure, and our enemies know this. And I think the American people, sadly, that are now chanting things, or even if they're not chanting things, sitting on the sidelines saying, I don't know which side to go with. I don't really like this one side, but I don't know enough. Well, if we keep going this way, a lot of Americans are going to get an education that they didn't want, and I don't want to see us get, because we'll have our own October 7th.
Yeah, and even if you look, there are two ways that you could argue this. As a matter of fact, if the late Charlie Kirk, I've seen him in his debates with people, particularly on abortion. He would ask them, all right, how do you want to debate this? Do you want to debate it on a religious footing, or you want to debate this on a secular footing? He'd allow them to pick it. And I do this sometimes on the issue of Israel. We could do this on a religious basis that of ancient Israel and the current Israel and their connection, or we could do this on a secular level, and that is, they are a free people, they are a stable democracy, and as Americans, we ought to support stable democracies anywhere else around the world, regardless of where they are. And so I could debate that on a secular level, or on the religious ancient Israelites and their connection to the current Israel.
Okay, I know I keep saying the last question, but this is it. How I don't get to interview a lot of politicians that can go this length of the field on so many issues. Do you read a lot? Did your mom and dad raise you a certain way? Because you're self-educated.
An autodidact, to use Charlie Kirk's phrase. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Autodidact is someone that's self-taught. I do. I tell you, the way I particularly on biblical matters, I'll get focused on something, and that's all. I'll just try to find anything I can find on that topic until I've exhausted it or lose interest in it. I'll find another topic. And but yeah, I do read. And growing up, my family, we always surround the table and we talk politics and religion. My brother's actually got a master's degree in biblical studies. So we have a lot of conversations growing up and when we were younger, sitting around the table on this. So yeah, I enjoy it, and it's a passion.
Well, it shows, and it's nice to talk to an elected official that actually can talk the gamut: local, political, economic, international, geopolitics. Because I think you probably know there's a lot of guys that can't do what we just did.
Probably so.
Well, I interview
you talk to more of them.
I sure do. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
If you want to search him, it's Tennessee Senator Brent Taylor. Just search him. You'll pop right up. You have social media?
I do. I'm on Facebook and X.
Just type in Senator Brent Taylor to pop up.
Senator Brent Taylor. Yeah. Follow me. It's entertaining. We
of course it is.
We comment on a lot of serious topics, but we do it in an entertaining way. And I'm an irreverent person by personality, and it comes across in my social media.
Well, we will be playing some of the Taylorisms.
Well, thank you. Please do.
We will.
And look, if you're going to be memorable, it helps to be a.
There's another one. All right, folks, we'll be right back after this break.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed. Joining me now is Dr. Basima Williams. Let's talk about grieving. Let's talk about depression. On my radio show today at 1 o'clock Central, I dealt with this issue of depression. Here's an article. This is what I used to jump off of for radio today. America's alarming depression problem. It's Newsweek. Talk about the number of people that are suffering from depression. Do you know the Bible says that anxiety creates depression? You know the Bible says that? Anxiety leads to depression. Why are so many people having anxiety? Well, today on radio and television, I went through some Bible verses that deal with that topic. And you know what, folks? That's one of the great blessings of being a Christian and dwelt by the Holy Spirit. What is the Holy Spirit called? What did the Lord himself call the Holy Spirit? The Comforter, right? I must go, he said to his disciples before his ascension, so the Comforter can come, the Holy Spirit. And the Bible is filled with verses, as I went over them, some of them today on radio and TV at 1 o'clock Central. The Bible's filled with verses about how the Christian is comforted. The believer is comforted with the Holy Spirit, our relationship with the Holy Spirit, and our relationship with God, our relationship with the Lord, with the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And the Bible says, cast all your cares on me. Cast all your cares on the Lord. Cast all your burdens on the Lord, for he careth for you. The Bible says the Lord cares for us so much that he knows the number of hairs on our head. He knew us while we were even being knit together in our mother's womb. You know what? You can't say that about the gods of the false religions. Allah is not a personal God. Any former Muslim will tell you that one of the things that attracted them to biblical Christianity was the personal relationship that could be had with Christ and the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. Allah would never take on the form of a man. Allah would never lay down his life for someone else. Allah is not a personal God. And the true, honest Muslims will tell you that Christians and Muslims don't worship the same God. Because we know that there's the triune God. In fact, do you know that the Muslims accuse us of being false because we believe in the Trinity, which is something I don't understand in my earthly mind. I won't fully understand it till heaven, but I accept it by faith. But did you know that the Muslims, Islam, criticizes Christians for being polytheist, meaning we believe in many gods? No, we don't. We believe in one God, but three persons in one. So how could Muslims say to Christians, we worship the same God, when they blaspheme us behind our back? They say we're blasphemers for believing in the Trinity. Well, that's because they're lying to you. And Muslims can do that through what's called Qatiyya. Let me fix that, Logan. Taqiyya. Why can Muslims say that about us? That we're blaspheming the Lord because we believe in the Trinity. Because they can practice what's called taqiyya. They can lie to you. But any honest Muslim will tell you, no, Christians and Muslims don't worship the same God. God would never take on the form of man, God incarnate, Emmanuel, God with us. So we believe in the Trinity, the Holy Spirit, and this is what helps bring comfort to us. We also know that because of studying our Bibles, that for believers, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. Maybe not in this life. Maybe not in this life, folks. But it will all be worked out for God's honor and glory in our life at some point. Does that not give you hope? When the world seems to be falling apart, do you not find comfort in the fact that the Lord has ordained your days and is providentially moving and working in your life, and he cares for you, and that the Lord makes intercession for us before the Father and prays for us? I could just go on for hours. No wonder Christians die well. No wonder Christians have so much hope and optimism when they're really truly walking with the Lord. Now, that doesn't mean all Christians have that, because some Christians don't study their Bible. But have you ever noticed the more that someone is a deeply committed and discipled Christian, the more peace, tranquility, calm they have in their life? That goes along with the sanctification process, ongoing faithfulness and obedience. The more you study the Bible, the more you're indwelt by the Holy Spirit, the more you're yielding, I should say, to the Holy Spirit, those are the people that seem to have the most peace. There's a correlation. The closer you get to the Lord, the more peace you have. Doesn't mean life is perfect. All who desire to live godly in Christ Jesus will what? Suffer persecution. But even in the midst of persecution, what did Paul say? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You know what the context was? Persecution. Through Christ, I can make it through this trial, this tribulation, this persecution, and have peace in the midst of it. Guarding our hearts and minds in Christ. So no wonder the world has so much anxiety, which leads to depression. And there are solutions, and Christians can find so much in our study of the Word to help people understand why they might be having anxiety, why they might be having depression. Joining me now is Dr. Basima to also talk about grieving, because a lot of us are grieving over the murder, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it's not just the assassination of Charlie Kirk, as bad as that is, and as a singular event to grieve over. I think many of us are grieving over the loss of our country, a common culture that we all shared, regardless of your political party or persuasion. For the most part, we all shared a common culture, right? We would go to ball games, and everybody would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody would stand for the prayer, particularly in the South, where they pray before football games. We had common things we rallied around: God, country, morals, right, wrong, family, Christian values, honoring your father and your mother, your grandparents, honesty. No, not everybody that embraced those values was a Christian or committed Christian, but there was a commonality in values and culture. And I think one thing we mourn is not only the murder, the senseless murder of Charlie Kirk, but we mourn the death of our country and culture and way of life that in many regards is gone, is not coming back, because we are a divided nation. And that's why, again, I can have hope even when I see my country falling apart and realize there's no way I can find common ground with these people. You can't find common ground with people who want you dead. But I can still have hope because I understand what God can do. Because even in the darkest hour, the brightest lights shine. And isn't that what Jesus said? Ye are the light of the world. So this is a great opportunity in one sense to let our light shine in so much darkness. And that gives me hope that what is meant for evil, God can use for good. Joining me now is Dr. Basima Williams. Dr. Basima, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Brannon, for having me here. And thank you for all the words that you just said. And I have a lot to add to that. But I do want to tell you in Acts chapter 1, verse 8, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you. And you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in Judea and in Samaria and in all to the end of the earth. We receive comfort, we receive hope, we receive power, we receive everything that we need through Jesus Christ, who died on a cross for our sins. And it does give us that hope and peace. And it's peace that surpasses understanding. However, we are still human. And so on Wednesday and Thursday of last week, I felt so empty and so numb. And in fact, my brain, I'm sure your brain was working really good because you had to, with the work that you do, you have to keep pushing forward. And I was actually seeing patients on Wednesday and had a really full schedule, and I still had to push through. But man, as soon as I was done, I shut my computer off and just needed a mental break. And why is that? And one of the reasons why we're grieving so hard is, there's a lot of unique things about this particular death with Charlie. And, I love what Chad Prather said, which is the reason you feel Charlie's death so deeply is because grief doesn't measure itself by proximity. In other words, not by, could have been your brother or your father or someone like that, but it measures it by meaning. You didn't have to know Charlie personally to feel the sting of his absence, because when a voice like his goes silent, something in the atmosphere shifted. And so many of my patients felt uneasy, like there was something wrong. And, when you really dissect out this particular incident, you see that we were witness to a violent murder. This is a very violent murder. This is something that everyone who wanted to see it on Instagram, Facebook, whatever media you wanted to, even on some, TV broadcast, they were showing the actual shot.
We did. We did.
Yeah.
We did. We showed it 7, 8, 9, 10 times while we were live on the air, getting word they'd been assassinated. And maybe we shouldn't have, and maybe we showed it too much.
No.
But
No.
But
It's
we
okay.
may have. But I wanted to show it the same way I wanted to show the unedited videos on October 7th, because I think we have to make people. I think we have, in some ways, to shock people into reality and out of this world, this worldview that people seem to have that has made them numb to attacking and murdering people who they see as one-dimensional. Right? When you know someone, right? Like if God forbid something happened to me, you would say, well, the people that hated Brandon only knew him one-dimensional, right? What they saw on TV. You would say, but I knew Brandon multi-dimensional, right? I knew him as a father. I knew him as a husband. I knew him as a talk show host. I knew him as a Christian. I knew him as a friend. I knew him as a CEO of a business guy.
Yeah, how about a human?
About a human, right? I knew him on a personal level, multi-dimensional, right? And that's what I talked about right away, was we've dehumanized people. And I wanted to show it several times to snap people into reality. This was a human that was just slaughtered and murdered. Wake up, people, because what they did to Charlie, they have a list. They have admitted they're making a list.
And honestly, people could have chosen to watch it or just close their eyes for a few seconds because they knew it was coming. Yep. That's what I did when I was watching some videos on Instagram, trying to comprehend and learn what was going on. So it's still the person's individual choice to whether or not they want to see it. But it was a violent death, and it was broadcast everywhere. And that's part of the problem with this particular incident, is that violent death in our imagination, for those who didn't watch it, because I didn't see it, for those who didn't watch it, it's still there. And so you still feel numb from it. But what makes it even worse is that it really, what really makes this particular incident worse, in my opinion, is that we're having this collective grief, right? Which typically happens when something huge happens. And when you think about it, this is the first time that I can remember in at least my lifetime and in recent history where this country has been so polarized in opposite directions that there is actually people that don't care that he got shot. And there's some people that, of course, like us, that are very, very traumatized by it and very emotional about it and have a lot of sadness and, and we're grieving this loss. But, after 9/11, the country as a whole collectively grieved. After JFK was shot, the country as a whole grieved. Even when Kobe Bryant died suddenly, we all grieved together. But when Charlie Kirk got shot, this is the first time that I can think of where the country was so divided, and that adds more pain. And part of the reason, and also it's somebody who died because of their beliefs, right? And those beliefs are a lot of the same beliefs I have. I didn't agree with everything Charlie Kirk said. And I shouldn't. I should have my own opinion. You should have your own opinion. I did believe in what he was preaching about the Bible. I found that to be extremely accurate and on point. But the grieving that we're having as a country, not only with him, but with Irina and what happened in in Charlotte, North Carolina, and what happens with the school shootings, and why Escape Zone has actually made backpacks for kids that have bulletproof backing on the back so that they can protect themselves. Why is that? Why have we normalized school shootings and other events like this? And I think that's part of this whole grieving process, is what we feared and what we believed to be true was actualized with the death of Charlie Kirk, the vicious death of Charlie Kirk. And so what happens is, when this has become actualized, our immediate medical response is fight or freeze. And for me personally, I froze for 2 days. I wasn't like frozen in place. I was numb. I didn't know how to process it. I didn't even know what I was upset about. Obviously, I was upset that he died, but I didn't know why it was so deep. I didn't personally know him, but why was it so deep? Like I had just lost a child. That was where I really stopped and really began to, kind of process through all of this grief, started journaling. I remember back in 9/11, I was pregnant with my daughter, Grace, 8 months pregnant, and 9/11 happened. And I had that same uneasy feeling, although for some reason this one was even worse. I had that same uneasy feeling, and I had to journal. And it wasn't until I got to the 5th or 6th page that I realized why I was so upset. And one of the reasons is our safety and any control we have over it has been violated. And my ability to take care of and have this child and bring this child into this earth was being threatened. And that's anxiety, right? That's the root cause of what was really causing me to be so anxious. So I cast it out on God. I'm like, God, I can't deal with this. So I'm going to give it to you and walk away from it, because I had to. Now, the other thing journaling really, really does is it really starts to cultivate by breaking down all of your thoughts into little tiny pieces, and by pulling out the subconscious out of your mind. It starts to give you a sense of purpose. What are we going to do from here? What is our why for living? Why are we here at this time? Why did God put us here right now? And so you start to cultivate the why in your own community, in your own little world, so that you can continue carrying the message. And I think that's what's happening to a lot of younger people right now that had the ability to witness Charlie Kirk. But one last thing I just want to say is that we live in a world now where there is so much digital tech algorithm targeting that we have made. If you want to make Charlie Kirk look like a saint and amazing and great, your algorithm is going to feed that to you. But if you start watching videos where he is, shed in a different kind of light, you will start getting all those videos. And what does that do to this country? Is it polarizes and separates us even more.
I think you make a very good point right there. That's an amazing point. The algorithms are enforcing the values and worldview of each individual, which is dividing us more and more. So as people see whatever worldview and values they have chosen, I hate Charlie Kirk, they may say he was a fascist, he was a hater, he was a Nazi, all these things, he was a racist, all these things they say about him that I can not find any truth in any of that.
That's what you're going to get fed.
And that's what you get fed. So it's going to reinforce your narrative, right? Reinforce, which then only pits you further and more aggressively against the other side, because you now are convinced with collective group think that you're right because it's been enforced by others. Well, others think the same way I do, therefore we all must be right. Correct?
Especially if you didn't know Charlie Kirk, and you don't have that history with him, and you find out, oh my gosh, why is everyone making such a big deal about it? And then you start looking it up, and you start getting fed things that may or may not be true, but you don't have that history and the deep knowledge of what he really stood for. For years, you have no idea what he's done to multiple churches around the country. We happen to be fortunate that he actually visited our church and worked with our pastors in St. Louis. So and was so generous to them, and continued with their continuing education from a biblical perspective. People in my own Bible study, that is amazing. It's an amazing Bible study. It's huge. And they're all professional women. Were polarized. There was a few select people that I don't think really knew him that had a different view of him. And I was shocked to hear that when I listened to their views. And I just, again, we can't be expected to believe and understand and agree with everything that everyone says. And if we think we can, then we are not living in reality. We're living in a, in non-truth, right? We won't agree. The reason why we all have different opinions is because they're all opinions. But if we believe the majority of what he's saying, and specifically if we believe in how he is interpreting the Bible, then we have to give some credit to that.
So some of the grief then is not only spiritual, we're grieving at a spiritual level, but some of it's physiological as well, right?
Absolutely.
So how does someone deal with that? If someone is trying to snap out of this, obviously the most important thing is prayer, cast all your cares upon me. The Bible says about the Lord, for he cares for you. Pray, be anxious for nothing but in prayer and supplication. In fact, studies show that people who pray tend to have a better mental mindset, emotional mindset. So read your Bible, read the Psalms, read the Proverbs, pray. But what else can they do that can help them physiologically, like what they eat, exercise? Give me some other, sleep, right? Music.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but I've also listened to a lot of classical music. I listen to a lot of classical music, not only because I like it, but studies have shown the frequencies of the classical music and the tempo of the classical music is all very good for your mind and your brain. And I think we even see that in the Bible. Didn't Saul call David to play his harp for him when he had depression and anxiety? So I've always been a person that listens to classical music since high school, and very, very common that I start my day every day with 2 C's, coffee and classical music.
Wow, you're so organized. You're so organized. I wish I was that organized. But
well, I'm sure you're better organized than I am. But
yeah, I love elevation worship, and they bring me so much peace. They speak the truth over me and the words that they sing. But when I am trying to focus, I will listen to classical music because it is in a specific type of classical music. There's different tones and frequencies, and definitely there's some that are actually geared towards better focus and function. So I do put faith up there. Romans 8:28 are words to live by, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who are called according to His purpose. And I think in this verse it gives us a mission. And it gives us something to do. And sometimes it's not just accepting what happened and knowing that we don't know God's plan, but He's also asking us, we're supposed to be doing according to His purpose. What's His purpose in our lives? And I think that's where journaling is extremely effective. Again, it breaks it down into all of our thoughts that are all jumbled in our head and we're frozen. It breaks all of those thoughts down into bite-sized pieces so that we can make something of it. And a lot of people who do journal have a sense of purpose in their life because they've actually paid attention to how they're feeling. They've processed emotions, and they're in the middle of, of course, this grieving event, but also just in everyday today life. So I would put faith and journaling up there as my 2 biggest things. And here's the problem with the fight, flight, or freeze response is if we are stuck in it, for people who are stuck in feeling numb, like I was feeling numb and my brain wasn't working. And guess what? When you're in fight or flight, they don't have to work because your body has to give energy to other areas of your body in order to continue living and in order to continue surviving. You're not digesting well. You're not going to want to eat. You're probably not going to sleep well. Your brain is just on this hamster wheel of just thinking about all these thoughts, and you have to write them down so that you can get them organized. You don't even know why you're upset, but then you find out you're upset because this country is so polarized. You're upset that there's actually people that are actually celebrating Charlie Kirk's death instead of being remorseful, because after all, he was a human, and it doesn't make sense to our brain. It doesn't. We cannot process it properly. But more importantly, from a physiological perspective, if you are stuck in fight or flight for days and you're not doing anything about it, what you're really doing is you have a significant increase in adrenaline, norepinephrine and epinephrine and cortisol that are really high. And that's okay on short term, especially short term amounts, and then you level back out. But when you have this for a long period of time, it will lead to a lot of things, like a lot of inflammation, a lot of blood sugar dysregulation, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, some cancers. Obviously, it affects the gut, leaky gut, all these infections. And so we definitely have to be mindful that this event does not cause us to stay in fight or flight, and that we're mindful to start doing things that help us get out of it, and to know above all things that God will take all things that happen that the devil intended for evil and bad and destruction to turn it around for his good. And he's already doing that. We already have evidence of that in our life, just with everything that we're seeing. But I would say journaling and faith is on the top of that list. And, I just want to talk about some warning signs. If you feel like you're stuck in fight or flight, you're going to have things like you're not going to want to do anything with anyone. So you're going to be very withdrawn, and you want to sort of isolate yourself, which is completely opposite of what you should be doing. Because as you know, Brannon, when we are hanging around people, we've talked about this a lot. One of the 5 pillars of health, of really good longevity and increasing health span, is having social connection and releasing a hormone called oxytocin, which helps calm down that central nervous system fight or flight response. So definitely being intentional about being with family and friends. If you find yourself withdrawing more and more and wanting to be in isolation, that's a red flag. And by red flag, what I mean is you need to get professional help potentially. Not eating, not sleeping, unusual behaviors like drinking too much alcohol, overworking. Overworking is a compensation that a lot of men have. When they can't control the world around them, they just work more because they're providing more. And in their minds, they're justifying that as, it's okay, I'm working more, and that's a good thing. But it's not a good thing, because you're really, it's just a coping mechanism. You can use that temporarily. Women do that too. They busy themselves with all this stuff so that they don't have to deal with their emotions, but that is not healthy in the long term. If you find yourself being too snappy, or if you're doing unusual things like spending way too much money, all these things are red flags that you need to get help. And from a physical signs, how you feel perspective, some of the biggest ones are fatigue. And of course, we discussed insomnia already, but also the depression that you just can't shake. You're just really down in the dumps when, and again, you can't shake it because you can't put a finger on it. That's where I would advise you start journaling right away. It is incredibly effective. And like I said, when I journaled for 9/11, it wasn't until I got to page 5 or 6 that I realized what the root cause of why I was so viscerally triggered really was.
Dr. Basima, great ideas, thoughts, truth. Because again, medicine is not just physiological. It is spiritual. We're all spiritual beings. And the mind, if you do an autopsy, we could show you the brain, but we can't show you the mind. And the mind is tied to the conscience and the soul. And all of these are human emotions and feelings that are tied to the spiritual. So I know that's why a lot of people appreciate you as an MD, as a functional medicine doctor, because you not only understand the natural world, you understand the spiritual side, which also goes to the issue of treating people for good health, right?
100%. I mean, I was born in Iraq, and in Iraq, you go to the kitchen for your remedies. You don't go to a doctor. And so when I came here and I went through regular medical school, I was kind of shocked that we just had so many drugs and they were glorified. It was like, wow, you can treat this. In the old days, we didn't have any, blah, blah, blah. But, all these new prescriptions and all these new things, there's a new drug for fatty liver disease. It's like, no, weight loss is the treatment, not a new drug, because and it's just mind boggling, all these things coming out. But, just going back to this grieving, episode that we're just discussing right now, I want to just give everyone space. We're all going to grieve differently. And I will say, when you have a close relationship with Jesus Christ and you can readily cast your anxiety on him, that is amazing. It's an amazing, powerful tool that we have that we get to use. And we just have to visualize it and use it ourselves, and all the while take care of ourselves, right? Make sure that we're eating healthy, make sure we're eating an anti-inflammatory diet. For some people who start eating sugar and candy and eating late at night, that's a red flag. That's a change in behavior. Get back on track. You destroying your own body is not going to help the overall kingdom, right? So get back on track by eating anti-inflammatory foods. Get back on track by taking your supplements. We actually created a supplement pack called Calm and Restore for our patients who are on that hamster wheel of life, that are just so busy and overrun and overcommitted and just stressed out all the time. It's a good starting point for so many people to just calm down. It helps with sleep. It helps calm the central nervous system. And I'll tell you, Brannon, there's some people who have I have a really good friend who has a amazing close relationship with Jesus Christ, but she suffers from anxiety. And I think part of it is genetics and her tendency to do that. So we have to be mindful that not all of us are going to be grieving the same way. Not all of us can just say, well, God, here it is, take it from me, and move on. There's just so much to the human body. We were made to feel. We were made to be empathetic. And while we're grieving Charlie's passing, we're also grieving for his wife, for his children, for this country. Some of us might even be grieving for the shooter, and what led him astray. Why was he, this amazing kid in high school, and then he goes to college for what happened? What happened? So we don't know. Some of us are grieving for Irina's killer, and some of us are upset that he wasn't put in jail earlier for all the other crimes that he had committed. Why was he even available and present to be able to do another crime that would ultimately lock him up for life? So all these questions are going through people's minds, and some people, Brannon, cannot turn them off. And this is where, something like paying attention to diet, making sure you're sleeping, doing all the things you can control is really helpful. Being intentional about being at your Bible study, being intentional about seeing friends and meeting them for coffee, being intentional about journaling, being intentional about sleeping, being intentional about praying, being in the Word, all these things that you can control will help offset some of the things that you can't, and hopefully get you back into a space where your nervous system is not shooting off like crazy. Because I'll tell you, that is one of the biggest reasons people end up seeing me, and they don't even realize it, because you don't realize you're in fight or flight. You just feel anxious all the time, but you have no idea why.
Dr. Basima, worldviewvitamins.com. Check it out, folks. Worldviewvitamins.com. Treating not just the natural, but also the spiritual in our interview tonight. Worldviewvitamins.com. As always, Dr. Basima, thank you. And folks, those of you who are coming to our national conference Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th, we'll have the chance to meet Dr. Basima in person. She'll be there along with Tina, her sister of SAT 123. So again, I hope you can come join us and also visit with great folks like Dr. Basima. God bless you, Dr. Basima. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Yeah, blessings to you guys too. Take care.
Thank you. We'll be right back, folks,
Bye-bye.
right after this break.
Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. Joining me now is Tina Blanco with worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. I have a satellite phone. Should something happen, power go down, cell towers go down, I can be in communication. I also have a bivy here that I can sync to my cell phone. And even if the cell towers are down, I could use my cell phone to compose the message and then use my bivy to send it to the satellite down to my family members that have a bivy. So my friends, do you have a bulletproof backpack? Where's that bulletproof backpack? It's a big backpack. It's so big, it's somewhere in here. It's so big, I could use it to cover my whole torso. You know, your vital organs. Sad that we have to talk like that, but we do. How about the solar generators? I have one of those. Let's talk to Tina. But Tina, I wanted to interview Tina a couple days ago, and Tina wasn't up to it because Tina, like many of us, said this has really been overwhelming because she also worked with Charlie Kirk, as he spoke also at one of our events we organized, but she worked with him. She was one of the sponsors of his broadcast. So she said, Brent, I just need a few days to try to recuperate and deal with the emotions of what's just happened. So she joins us. Tina, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you for being with us. I didn't realize that you were one of the sponsors of his broadcast. I know you sponsor a lot of shows, but it sounds like you've been working with Charlie for quite some time.
Yeah, we have been working with him for quite some time, and it has just been so devastating. The first couple of days, I couldn't even get out of bed. Just cried because I just couldn't handle it. And the fact that all these videos were on TV, on anywhere you went of him getting shot. I mean, I just cannot imagine what, the younger generation is going through, seeing what they saw. So yeah, it's been very difficult because, you know him, great guy. And I think the first couple of days I was just questioning God, like, God, why? To be honest with you, Brannon, I would have taken his place if I could, because I kept saying he's way more important to Christ on earth than I am. And then I just had to come to a conclusion that Jesus knows what he's doing. And we just have to accept the fact that what his plan and his will be done, and we cannot question him. And but it's been tough. It's still tough. It's still hard.
It is still hard. Tell me about working with him. And how long were you working with him as a sponsor of the Charlie Kirk show?
Since 2021.
Okay, so a while, for a good 4 years.
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
Yeah. I got introduced to him and started working with him, and I'm wearing this because this is the last interview. This is what I was exactly wearing the last time he interviewed me, was this outfit. So I'm just trying to, I haven't done any podcasts. I haven't done anything since this happened, about a little bit over a week ago. But I realized that we need to move on because I think that's what he would want. And I think that's what, Christ would want. I am going to go after this. I'm driving to Arizona. I'm in San Diego to go to the funeral because I think that will help me as well, put a little bit, be able to move forward.
Wow. All right. Well, so you're going to be going to the funeral in Arizona.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let us know what you
go ahead.
hear, aside from what we're all going to see televised. Let us know what you hear and see there on the ground, will you?
Yeah, I will. We saw, for me, it's just hard to believe that the security, for me, it's like, how do you not secure this person? I mean, I've always, even before he got shot, even with Trump, how do you allow somebody that's not experienced be able to take shots, even at our president, when there was an attempt on his life? And then, that should have been an eye opener, I think, for us, for people that are in public, and because we see the hate that's being told by a lot of people, a lot of the Democrat politicians, that the names that were called, the names that they call our people. So these young people that are on site, that's all they hear. They don't get to hear the real truth of what, especially with what Charlie Kirk was saying. They only hear what they're told that he says. And we all know that the things that they say about him are lies.
Yeah. All right. So let's transition, as crass as it may seem, let's transition to talking about the importance, though, of preparing for, who knows what. It seems like NATO is still pushing, and many of those European countries are still pushing for World War III. So there's so many things to get ready for. I haven't had you on now for several weeks. Talk to us about what your company offers, and with each purchase, you're helping keep this network going. So talk about our partnership and the products and the services that you're offering our audience through worldviewtalk.com.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, life, goes on, and, we got to get back to work. This is my first day back to working. But yes, so we do have these satellite phones. The one that you held up is an Iridium phone. And this phone does work from anywhere on Earth without any exception. You can literally make a call from anywhere on Earth. And some of the benefits of this phone, it's not just that it works from anywhere on Earth. It's also security. You have a secured phone call in case you want to have a call where you don't want big tech or the government or anyone just to hear you. If you want to have a private call with your wife or your children, it's kind of nice having something that it is secured. And then also in event of emergency, cell towers are fragile. You and I saw that happen twice last year where the AT&T and other networks went down and there was no explanation. They were hacked. Is basically what had happened at the end of the day is what we found out. Well, these can't be hacked. So the bad guys aren't gonna, come and fight us with guns or anything. They're just gonna, all they have to do to cripple us is to take down our communication. They can't take this down. This is satellite based. You go out, you extend the antenna, you have to be outside. This is your cell tower, and nobody can hack it. You go out, and now you can make a phone call.
That's it. Just get the satellite, fire it, hit call. What I love about what your company does is you allow the minutes to roll over. So if someone's not going to use the phone for a month or two or whatever, but then they go into an area, maybe for a weekend or a week, they go on vacation somewhere, or if there's a crisis, or they're just traveling where there's bad cell coverage, they can talk without having to worry that they're going to end up getting a huge bill because you're so generous in letting them acquire those minutes, right?
Yeah, and we did see a lot of that come to life in the past couple of years with Hurricane Milton, Hurricane Helene, also in Hawaii, in where the fires, where we had customers that have had it for years. Some customers told us that they've had their phone for 8 years and they never used it. And then when an emergency happened, they were so happy that they had it because they allowed all the neighborhoods to use the phone so that they could call their friends and family to let them know that they're okay. So it does come in handy, and we heard a lot of that during Hurricane Helene last year. where the folks in North Carolina were able to communicate with first responders and also with friends and family to let them know what they needed. And so you never know. There could be fires, earthquakes. It's good to have something that cannot be taken down by natural disasters or by bad people.
Absolutely. Now tell me about, if you would, the solar generators.
Yeah, so the solar generators, as you know, we have them. If you can give out the website, is it
worldviewtalk.com, guys? You're going to put that on there. Worldview, there it is.
Okay,
worldviewtalk.com.
So yeah, I don't want to give out my website. So we have generators. We put packages together that gives you about 40% off, because when you get a generator, you may also need a solar panel for it, and you may also need Faraday to protect it in case of an EMP attack. So we do have all of that. And the solar panels are so amazing because they're portable and they're light to carry. So even if you have a 400-watt solar panel, and 400 watt is quite a bit because it can charge up pretty much anything. You can plug in anything that you have at home that can be powered. 400 watt is pretty powerful, and it is like I can carry it. That's how light it is. So it is really nice. So if you go to the website, we have some great packages put together with 220 watt and a generator, or 400 watt and a generator. So you'll be able to see all of that. And thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, folks, worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. Now, you're going to be with us at our national conference with your sister, Dr. Basima, right?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. I will be there. I've already reserved the space for me to stay. So I'm excited. And yeah, so my sister, Dr. Williams, which is on your show as well, will be there. I think she's going to do a speech. So I'm really excited.
Yep.
She really is an amazing doctor, by the way. So I'm so happy.
Well, you both are amazing. You both are amazing in your own abilities, your own gifts. We love both of you guys, and they're sisters, so there you go. They'll both be with us at our national conference Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. Full details at worldviewstore.com. But otherwise, check out all these great products by a great company with a great CEO, Tina, and it's at worldviewtalk.com. With each purchase, you're helping support our free Christian Worldview programming to keep pushing it out there. Worldviewtalk.com. Thank you, Tina. Look forward to seeing you in about 2 weeks.
Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. Do you appreciate all we're doing? Well, we need your support. There's one way you can support us right there. Worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. And as always, we appreciate your support through our foundation as well. Worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. Remember, you'll find our mailing address there as well if you prefer to support us through the mail. You'll also find a phone number if you would like to make a contribution over the phone. If you'd like to do that, you can make a contribution there as through our phone number, which you'll find at worldviewfoundation.com. Well, thanks again for watching. And until next time, may God save America. Take care.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the